we have ourselves almost 2 full shulker boxes worth of cocoa beans, which is going to be very helpful for us in order for us to make brown dye as well as more cocoa beans in the future in case we need it. On a side note, if you've noticed, I've always put in glow ink sacs on these signs just to make it easier to read for people who are using this farm. But I kind of ran out of glow ink sacks. And for that matter, I also don't want to keep going over to the end to keep making more wither roses to make black dye. And so we're going to tackle 2 problems in one. We're going to make a squid farm and a glow squid farm to get both ink sacs and glow ink sacs. What up, my roomies, and welcome back to the technical guide to Minecraft. And today we are going to make ourselves a squid farm for both normal squid and glow squid. But before we do that, we have to make a quick detour to a nearby ocean monument because I'm going to need some sponges. And yeah, just give me 1 second. There it is. All right, it's time to hot drop on this area. Going in. Okay, there's the weakness, it's fine. Just have one more guardian to deal with. This should be the last one. Now that all of them are dead, let's quickly get out of here. Now that all of them are taken care of, now we can safely try to find the sponges of this place. Oh, here it is. Quickly close this up so I have some breathing room to collect these. 32. That'll be good enough for what we need it for. Okay, let's head over to the nether real quick now that we got these sponges and quickly dry them off because there's actually a really quick way to dry off sponges. Let me get my hoe real quick, grab wet sponges, and then we can just plonk it down and it'll instantly turn to dry sponges and it'll be ready for us to use. Now, the reason why we need the sponges is because in order to make a squid farm, we're going to need to dry out a bunch of river biome. And to understand that, welcome to KiguCorp, where safety is a concern. So it may not look like it, but we're actually inside a river biome. And the reason why we're in a river biome is because this is where both squids and glow squids has the highest chance of spawning. But the way that both of them spawn are kind of different, yet kind of similar. See, when it comes to regular squid, they can only spawn in between Y levels 50 and 63. And the block that they spawn in has to have water above and below it. And so we have this sort of setup where it's being held up by fence gates. And the reason why it's being held up by fence gates is because fence gates, not only can't they be waterlogged, but they also allow entities to, well, fall through. And below here, we have ourselves the collecting area. The collection area over here is just a bunch of hopper mine carts that are going back and forth that are going to collect the squid that's going to come down, and then the hoppers beneath are going to collect it and then put it into this barrel for us to get. So in actuality, the squid farm really isn't that complicated to set up, because the rules in which that it spawns is simply Y level and if it has water. But I should also note that because we're in a river biome, that also means that you're going to have to dry out the entire river around it or find a small lake that is a river. Because if you just leave them there, it's going to way cut into your productivity and potentially not let the farm work at all. So it's important that you just go ahead and dry out the surrounding rivers. And if you already know the area and you know that there's caves nearby with water, you're going to need to dry that out too. Remember, we're trying to isolate the area in which the squid can spawn. When you dry all the other water out, the only water that exists for them to spawn in is the one that you made for the farm. So just to give a demonstration real quick, if we were to enable mob spawning, you see that the squid is now starting to spawn in. And because there are gaps in between the water columns, the squid will swim around until it gets caught by one of these air pockets. And when it gets caught by one of these air pockets, it'll then just fall. It's really that simple. But let's say you're done with this farm because you have enough ink sacs. Well, on the top here, each of the dispensers have an empty bucket in it. And you can see that it's wired to a redstone circuit. And what happens when you turn this on is that the dispensers will then scoop up the water into the dispensers, thus turning off the farm. Now, generally speaking, it's a good idea to have a way to turn off farms just so it reduces lag on the server, or just so that there's not a clog up on storage because you don't have enough storage, or it might just be some other reason. But it's always a good idea to have a way to turn off a farm. But the reason why we want to also be able to turn off this farm is because this is a universal squid farm, which means that you can use this for both squid and glow squid. And like I just said before, we want to limit the amount of water that's in the area where the squid, or in this case glow squid, will spawn. And over here, you'll notice that the build is actually the same, except that this whole thing is covered with tinted glass. And the reason why it's covered with tinted glass is that glow squid can only spawn in if it's in complete darkness. And so in order to show this, we surround this with tinted glass. And just like before, if you wanted to turn this off, we just flip the lever on and all the water dissipates. Then if you want to turn it on, flip the switch again, and the water, as you can see, flows back down. And the interesting thing about Glow Squid is that they spawn in any Y level below 30, which means that if you bring this to the lowest part of the world, the spawn rates is actually incredibly high. And as you can see, just like the regular squid, they'll swim into the open areas and just immediately fall down. And just like the squid farm, the collection area is just a bunch of hopper minecarts that's going into these hoppers that's then collecting it into this barrel for us to then collect. Thus showing that this farm is both usable for both squid, like everything else, sometimes simplest is best. If you want to play around with this, there's going to be a schematic and a world download in the description below. And with that in mind, let's head back to the technical guide world and get to it. Quick interruption. I noticed that only 12% of you are actually subscribed to this channel. Watching this long, I must be doing something right, so if you like this video, hit that like button and please subscribe to this channel. Any support helps and these videos take a bit long to make. Thank you so much and back to the video. Alright, so the first order of business is to drain out this river. And yeah, it's a river in the Badlands. In fact, it's not really even a river at all, but it still counts as a river. It's like a small pond lake thing, and there's like no other like water streams in sight. It's an oasis in the Badlands, which works out for me because I don't have to dry out an entire row of rivers. Now I could just use this lake and it'll count as a river. Let's go ahead and start draining this river. Okay, now that we've drained this entire river, that means that this area is going to be prime for squid spawning. And so here's the plan. I'm going to dig down to bedrock, set up a beacon, and then start digging the area so I can start building the squid farms. Just hope that I don't fall into a cave. Okay, now that we're done building this entire thing, which took a whole lot longer than I thought it would, it's nice to know that it immediately just started working. As you probably saw in the time lapse, the squid actually just started spawning. And so right off the bat, I know that this thing works for sure. It's time to go down to the collection chamber and yeah, just AFK here until we get a couple of shulker boxes worth of black dye. And probably some ink sacks too, just to make books and stuff, but mostly for the black dye. Alright, after about an hour, we have ourselves 4 full shulker boxes worth of just regular ink sacs. But we're not quite done yet. Remember, I'm trying to get both ink sacs and glow ink sacs. And having just a squid farm, just a standard squid farm, is not going to be enough or going to be helpful for us. But we don't want to go flying around and find another puddle. No. We want to use this same river. But if we keep this here, there's a chance that regular squids will keep spawning. So how do we address that? Well, we just turn the water off. And in this way, we can control which kind of squid farm we want to have active. So now I gotta make my way back down to the bottom and start building the glow squid farm, because I am in desperate need of more glowing sacks. So yeah, let's get to this. Okay, now that we've finished making this glow squid farm, you'll notice that it's basically the same as a regular squid farm. And that's what makes this a universal squid farm, because you could use this both for normal squid and regular squid. And you don't need XLRs for this one, because the glow squid will just fall, just like the regular squid. And so, let's turn this lever on, AFK here for a bit, and get all the glow insects that we're gonna need for the rest of Ambrosia. Okay, after about an hour, we got ourselves 3 shulker boxes worth of glow squidding, which is going to be more than enough for us for the entirety of Ambrosia. But I'm also going to get some more, just so the other people that play on the server are able to use glow squidding. And now that we're done with this farm, let's just turn this farm off by simply pulling the lever. And now, if we look through the tinted glass, you see that the water has now retracted and the farm is now turned off. So, if you want to use the regular squid farm, we can do so just by going up, or if we need to use this again, we can just turn this on. And now that we've got the ink sacs and the glowing sacs, I think it's time to slow things down a bit. And by that, I mean that we gotta do some archaeology. And the reason why is that we need to get some sniffers in order to go find the pitcher pots and the torch flowers.